In 2022, a 64-year-old couple from Ohio sold their home, liquidated $340,000 in retirement savings, and moved to a coastal town in Mexico they had visited twice on vacation. 18 months later, they were back in the United States. Not because they disliked Mexico, not because of safety concerns, because they had made 4 specific, entirely avoidable financial and legal mistakes in the planning phase that collectively cost them $87,000 and made their residency legally untenable. Their story is not unusual. It is, in fact, the most common outcome pattern for retirees who move abroad without a structured decision framework. The retirement abroad content ecosystem is saturated with videos telling you where to go. Almost none of them tell you what destroys the people who go. This video does. We are going to cover the 7 mistakes, in order of financial severity, that turn a well-funded retirement abroad into a crisis. Every single one of them is preventable. Every single one of them is happening right now to people who watch the same destination videos you have been watching. Let's get into it. Why mistakes are permanent. Before we go through the list, you need to understand one structural reality about retirement abroad that separates it from every other major life decision you have made. When you chose the wrong college, you transferred. When you took the wrong job, you resigned. When you bought the wrong house, you sold it, usually at a profit. Retirement abroad mistakes do not work like that. When you move at 65 and spend 18 months establishing a life, shipping furniture, closing accounts, informing Social Security of your new address, surrendering your apartment lease at home, building a social network, and then something goes catastrophically wrong, the cost of reversing that decision is not just financial. It is physical, emotional, and often permanent in ways that compound over time. This is the demographic that cannot afford to start over. The cost of inaction, of staying in a broken domestic retirement, is real and serious. But the cost of a poorly planned relocation is potentially catastrophic. The 7 mistakes on this list are the ones that appear most frequently in the actual case files of international relocation lawyers, expat financial advisors, and the community forums where retirees who got it wrong come to process what happened. This is institutional knowledge that most content creators do not have access to or do not want to tell you because it is less entertaining than a tour of cheap apartments. Here it is. The 7 mistakes. Mistake 1. Choosing a destination based on vacation experience. This is the most common origin point of a failed retirement abroad, and it is psychologically the most understandable. You spent 2 weeks in Costa Rica. The weather was perfect. The food was extraordinary. The people were warm. The prices felt impossibly low. You came home and started researching. Here is the structural problem. A 2-week vacation and a permanent residency are not the same product. On vacation, you are insulated from the friction of daily life. You do not deal with bureaucracy, banking, healthcare navigation, utility setup, lease negotiation, or the social architecture of building a real community from scratch. You experience the best version of a place without any of the operational reality. The retirees who succeed abroad almost universally share one specific pre-move behavior. They spent at minimum 3 to 6 continuous months in their target destination before committing financially. Not visiting, living, renting a local apartment, opening a local bank account, navigating local healthcare, attending expat community events, experiencing the full seasonal climate cycle, and stress testing the daily logistics of the life they are planning to build. 3 to 6 months of continuous pre-move residence is not optional preparation. It is the single most reliable filter for separating destinations that look good on a screen from destinations that function well as a permanent home. If your current plan involves moving to a country you have spent less than 90 continuous days in, that plan needs a revision before it needs a flight booking. Mistake 2. Buying property in the first 12 months. This mistake has destroyed more retirement abroad plans than any other single financial decision. The pattern is consistent. A retiree arrives in their destination country, falls in love with a property within the first 3 months, buys it, often paying cash to avoid mortgage complexity, and then discovers within the following 6 to 18 months one or more of the following. The property has a title defect that makes resale legally complicated. The neighborhood they loved as a tourist is functionally inconvenient as a full-time resident. The expat community they expected to integrate with is smaller or less compatible than anticipated. The climate has a season they did not experience before buying. Local property laws restrict foreign ownership resale in ways their agent did not disclose. Or the country's political or economic situation has shifted in ways that affect property values and foreign ownership security. The universal rule among international relocation lawyers who work with expat retirees is this: do not buy property in a foreign country until you have lived there for a minimum of 12 months as a renter. 12 months exposes you to the full seasonal cycle, the full bureaucratic reality, and the full social landscape of the destination. It also gives you the negotiating position of a buyer who knows the local market rather than a new arrival who is emotionally attached to the first property they fell in love with. Renting for 12 months before buying is not a financial inefficiency. At current rental rates in most retirement destinations, 12 months of rent is significantly less than the legal, financial, and emotional cost of buying the wrong property and being unable to exit cleanly. Mistake 3. Failing to restructure tax residency before departure. The United States taxes its citizens on worldwide income regardless of where they live. This is not widely understood outside the U.S., and it surprises many American retirees who assume that moving abroad removes their U.S. tax obligations. It does not. What moving abroad does, if structured correctly before you leave, is create a legal framework in which your foreign tax obligations offset your U.S. obligations, and your total effective tax rate on pension, Social Security, and investment income is significantly lower than it would be under a purely domestic structure. If structured incorrectly, or not structured at all, you can end up legally obligated to pay taxes in both your home country and your destination country on the same income. This is called double taxation, and while bilateral tax treaties exist between the U.S. and most major retirement destinations to prevent the worst outcomes, the treaty protections are not automatic. They require specific filing elections, specific residency classifications, and in some cases, specific income structuring decisions that must be made before you establish foreign residency, not after. The correct sequence is: engage a U.S. qualified international tax attorney or CPA with specific expat retirement experience at least 6 months before your planned departure date. Review your specific income sources, Social Security, pension, 401k drawdowns, rental income, investment dividends, against the tax treaty framework of your destination country. Make any necessary account restructuring decisions, Roth conversions, income timing, asset location, before you change your tax residency. The cost of this professional engagement, $1,500 to $4,000 for a comprehensive pre-departure tax strategy review. The cost of getting it wrong, potentially $10,000 to $40,000 per year in unnecessary tax liability indefinitely. Mistake 4. Relying on tourist visa status for long-term residence. This mistake is more common than it should be in 2026 because the content ecosystem around retirement abroad has consistently underplayed its severity. The pattern: a retiree arrives in their destination country on a tourist entry, 30, 60, or 90 days depending on the country, extends it once if extension is available, then does a brief border run to a neighboring country and re-enters on a new tourist stamp. They repeat this process for 6, 12, sometimes 18 months while they figure out the visa situation. Immigration authorities in Thailand, Portugal, Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, and virtually every other popular retirement destination have become significantly more rigorous in their enforcement of long-term tourist entry patterns over the past 3 years. The consequences of being flagged as a long-term tourist attempting to circumvent residency requirements range from being denied re-entry at the border with no appeal process and no refund of any money spent, to being issued a formal ban from the country for a period of 1 to 5 years. Beyond the legal risk, tourist visa status creates a structural instability in every other aspect of your life in that country. You cannot open a local bank account in most countries without a residency visa. You cannot access the public healthcare system. You cannot sign a long-term lease in your own name in many jurisdictions. You cannot establish a legal address for tax purposes. Legal residency is not a bureaucratic formality. It is the foundation on which every other aspect of a functional life abroad is built. Start the visa process a minimum of 6 months before your planned departure. In some countries, Portugal being the current most prominent example, consulate processing times have extended to 6 to 9 months. Starting the process after you arrive is not a viable strategy. Mistake 5. Inadequate healthcare transition planning. We covered the full architecture of international healthcare in our previous video, so here we will focus specifically on the mistake pattern rather than the solution framework. The mistake is not simply failing to get health insurance. Most retirees moving abroad understand they need some form of international coverage. The mistake is purchasing international health insurance reactively after arriving in the destination country, rather than proactively as part of the pre-departure planning process. Why does timing matter? 3 reasons. First, many international health insurance policies impose a waiting period of 90 to 180 days before pre-existing condition coverage activates, even under full medical underwriting. If you purchase the policy after you arrive, that waiting period runs while you are already abroad and potentially without adequate coverage for your most significant health risks. Second, some insurers will not underwrite applicants who are already resident in certain countries. They require the application to be submitted from your country of origin. Third, the process of full medical underwriting, which is the only safe approach for retirees with any significant health history, requires medical records, physician letters, and documentation that is significantly easier to gather while you are still in your home country's healthcare system. Purchase your international health insurance policy, complete underwriting, and receive written confirmation of exactly what is and is not covered before your departure date. Not on the plane, not after you land, before you leave. Mistake 6. Underestimating the social infrastructure requirement. This is the mistake that does not show up in financial postmortems, but is cited in every qualitative analysis of failed retirement relocations as a primary or contributing factor. The social architecture of daily life in your home country, your doctor, your pharmacist, your neighbors, your church or community organization, your adult children's proximity, your friends of 30 years, is invisible infrastructure that you do not notice until it is gone. Retirees who move abroad without a deliberate strategy for building social connection within the first 90 days face a specific and serious risk: isolation-driven depression, which in the 65-plus demographic is a clinical condition with measurable physical health consequences, not simply a lifestyle discomfort. The destinations that produce the highest long-term retention rates among expat retirees, Chiang Mai, the Algarve in Portugal, Medellin's El Poblado neighborhood, Panama City's expat zones, all share one structural feature: a pre-existing, organized, English-speaking expat community with regular social events, activity clubs, and informal support networks. Before you finalize your destination choice, research the specific social infrastructure available to you in that location. Attend an expat community event virtually or in person before you move. Join the relevant Facebook groups and WhatsApp communities for your target area. Identify the English-speaking places of worship, sports clubs, volunteer organizations, and social meetup groups that operate in your destination. Arriving in a country with a social calendar for the first 60 days is not a luxury. It is a clinical necessity for a demographic that is simultaneously navigating the psychological stress of a major life transition. Mistake 7. Failing to maintain a financial footprint in your home country. This is the mistake that creates the most practical daily friction for retirees who have otherwise planned well. The pattern. In an effort to simplify their financial life and commit fully to their new country, a retiree closes their U.S. or U.K. bank accounts, cancels their U.S. credit cards, and surrenders their domestic financial infrastructure entirely before the foreign equivalents are fully established and tested. The consequences are numerous and compounding. Social Security direct deposits require a U.S. or internationally designated bank account. Disrupting this creates delays of 2 to 4 months in payment processing. U.S. credit cards with no foreign transaction fees are significantly more functional in most expat destinations than local bank cards for international purchases, subscription services, and emergency transactions. U.S.-based investment accounts, brokerage accounts, and retirement accounts require a U.S. mailing address and, in many cases, a U.S. phone number to maintain online access. Losing these creates account access problems that are extraordinarily difficult to resolve from abroad. The correct approach: maintain a fully functional U.S. or home country financial footprint, at minimum a checking account, one major credit card, and a stable mailing address through a mail forwarding service for a minimum of 24 months after your departure date. This parallel financial structure costs approximately $30 to $60 per month in maintenance fees and mail forwarding costs. It prevents financial access crises that have no clean resolution from 8,000 miles away. The cost model. Let me give you the aggregate financial picture of these 7 mistakes, because the numbers make the stakes concrete. Mistake 1. Wrong destination chosen on vacation experience. Average cost of a full relocation reversal, including shipping, temporary housing, lost deposits, and travel, $18,000 to $35,000. Mistake 2. Premature property purchase with title defect or legal complication. Average financial loss, including legal fees, resale discount, and carrying costs, $25,000 to $90,000. Mistake 3. Unstructured tax residency leading to double taxation. Average annual unnecessary tax liability for a couple with $60,000 combined income, $8,000 to $22,000 per year, indefinitely. Mistake 4. Tourist visa enforcement resulting in re-entry denial, full relocation reversal cost plus legal representation, $15,000 to $40,000. Mistake 5. Inadequate healthcare coverage during waiting period. Average uninsured medical event cost in a destination without public system access, $4,000 to $74,000 depending on severity. Mistake 6. Social isolation leading to return migration. Full relocation, reversal cost, $18,000 to $35,000. Mistake 7. Home country financial footprint closure creating access disruption. Average cost of resolution, including account reinstatement, missed payments, and administrative fees, $2,000 to $8,000. Aggregate potential cost of making all 7 mistakes, $90,000 to $304,000. The cost of preventing all 7 mistakes through proper professional guidance, international tax attorney, relocation lawyer, independent insurance broker, and 90-day pre-move residence test, $5,000 to $12,000. The math on preparation versus recovery is not subtle. Every dollar spent on getting this right before departure saves between $8 and $25 in recovery costs after the fact. If you are currently in the planning phase of a retirement abroad, whether that is 6 months out or 3 years out, the most important thing you can do with this information is build a structured pre-departure checklist that ensures none of these 7 mistakes appear in your plan. We have built a complete retirement abroad risk audit, a step-by-step framework that walks you through each of these 7 risk categories with specific action items, professional referral criteria, and timeline milestones for a 12-month pre-departure planning window. It is available free at the link in the description. This channel does not accept commissions from real estate agents, visa agencies, or relocation companies. Every audit we produce is funded by our community and built to give you the analysis you need to make this decision correctly the first time. Subscribe to Retire Nest. The next video in this series covers the 5 countries with the most legally straightforward residency pathways for retirees in 2026. The destinations where the bureaucratic risk is lowest and the legal infrastructure for foreign retirees is most mature. That video drops next week. If you have already made one of these mistakes, or if you are currently navigating a situation that feels like it might be heading toward one, drop it in the comments. We read every one, and your specific situation may become the subject of a future deep dive Q&A.